Good afternoon. I have just been hemorrhaging money this week. Um, some unavoidable things and other just indulgences. In spite of that, I chose today, chose very much knowingly, knowing I'd been spending a lot of money. I decided to just fucking in for the penny, in for the pound. And it was in CX. There was something that I saw a wee while ago, last week even, or possibly the week before that. But it's been around a few days, at least. And I decided, fuck it, I'll go for it. Wasn't super cheap, wasn't super expensive, but something worth having. And it's in good condition. The label's dead shiny, in fact. It does nonetheless have the. Can you see that? You probably can't. You can just about see it here on the light. You can see the light, yeah, over the imprint. So that's the one thing I know to look out for now about legit Game Boy Advance games. Although I think CX are pretty reliable in that respect. Yeah. Anyway, so the only original Zelda game on the Game Boy Advance, I believe. Obviously, the Game Boy Advance early on had Link to the Past, which I played on the Game Boy Advance, and it was the first time I'd played it. Link to the Past. I really enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. And I did not play Four Swords in that context. I did play Four Swords Adventures on the GameCube, but as a single player game, which is a bit shite, really. The hack and slashy was my memory of it. It's so bizarre for a Zelda game to just be kind of like level oriented like that. Might be fun as a 2-player or 4-player thing. I don't know. I can't really remember enough about it. I get the impression Four Swords proper with A Link to the Past on the Game Boy Advance was maybe more of an interesting thing. I don't know. Don't know enough about it. Definitely appealed to me, but I just didn't know anyone else with a Game Boy Advance really, or people who had that and link cables weren't. We didn't really have them then. We had them on the Game Boy Color because of Pokemon, but yep, not so much afterwards. So Minish Cap. I think I've only played this through properly once, and I don't know if I've played it through improperly ever either. I remember this being really bloody good. Like, I remember playing it and just thinking it was super well made, well designed. I remember at the time feeling like it wasn't long enough, but I think that was I possibly got an inflated idea of how long games should be after kind of getting into large scale RPGs like Final Fantasy and returning to other games. I was like, oh, I completed this in a few days. But, if you're playing something all day, every day, you're going to complete it in a couple of days. That's going to happen. I think it was something like, I seem to remember it being something like 6 days took me to complete this. And I wasn't playing it every day in that time, but it was probably the main thing I did. Played it for a few hours every day, and that's quite intense, really. I think as an adult, reflecting on that, something that takes that amount of time, when you really do add up the time, is that's quite a lot of time to spend on something. So I remember that being a criticism I had of it, that it was too short. And maybe that's true, but maybe it is shorter than other Zelda games. It's certainly shorter than something like Link to the Past or Ocarina of Time. But it's it's probably not shorter than the first Zelda. That's a lot more challenging and a bit more it's a bit more challenging in terms of knowing quite what to do. So something that's as linear as the kind of and relatively handholdy as a more modern Zelda game. I suppose you get through it. I suppose the length isn't so much about content as about how long it takes you to work something out. A game could be really short and really hard, and that's probably not a defense either. So this is probably quite content rich. When you break it down, it's not about that. It's maybe more about the difficulty. But I remember it being quite really well designed, and it had a lot of. It looked good. I remember it being fun to play, and there was some ingenuity to the puzzles and things like that. I think that was the introduction of the bellows jar. I can't remember what it's called. It's something of the gust something. The big jar that shot out. Is that right, or am I thinking of Phantom Hourglass or something? No, that's a fucking weird game. That just felt like such a. Well, you know what? I enjoyed Phantom Hourglass, but Spirit Tracks felt very strongly like a B-list Zelda game. Well, probably lower than B-list. You know, this is maybe a B-list Zelda game. But anyway, maybe the Gust Bellows or whatever from that. Can't remember. But and the Mole Mitts, they were cool. Lots of cool stuff about Minish Cap as I remember. I will play it, I think. It'll only take me 6 days. Yeah, it just felt like a game that I ought to have. It was a game that maybe it was one of the ones I lost in that case of stuff on the bus when I was a teenager. Although I suspect not. I think I probably traded this in because I was thinking rather cynically, oh, I've completed it. That's what I did back then. I don't know if people still do that as much. I suspect they do. Except that I suppose things on Steam and stuff, you just keep them now. You've probably once you've bought them, you can. I don't know. Maybe it's like things like Bandcamp or maybe I don't know if the Google Play Store or App Store is like this. But once you've paid for something, you can download it and uninstall it. Kind of indefinitely. Make your mind up about it. Once you've paid for it, you can get it at any point you like. Don't know if that's true on Steam, but certainly. I mean, I've never used Steam, but I don't imagine you can sell games on it. Sell games you've bought. So I suppose in that respect it doesn't happen as much now. But we are still in the age of sort of games being physical things you can buy. So I suppose to that extent it probably still happens just as much as it used to. It's probably not even an age thing either, because I suppose a hoarding instinct isn't something that you necessarily develop the older you get. I think some people mature in that respect and they grow out of hoarding, as I did, and then this happened. So anyway, it was just a game that I thought I ought to have. All the games that I used to have, I don't have. It's so embarrassing. So embarrassing that I have so few mainline Zelda titles, so few of the Pokemon games that I have had over the years. So few of the games that these great games, these obvious classics that I've had that I just don't have anymore. It's bizarre. I just got rid of all of them at one time or another, and I suppose some of them I never owned. But yeah, that's that.